So J-Rock is awesome. It's probably most of what I listen to at this point. The problem is, if I go outside to school and I start talking about how, oh, I'm really into Japanese rock, people are like, what? Why? J-Rock doesn't exactly have the best reputation if you just go outside and start talking about it. I don't know if K-pop's ruined it, or if weird anime nerds have ruined it, but it doesn't have the best rep. So I figure what people need is to be red-pilled. If K-pop can get an international audience, so can J-Rock. So here's a bit of a beginner's guide to J-Rock, and I use beginner's guide very loosely here. Now, regrettably, you can't talk about J-Rock's popularity in the West without talking about what it is, regrettably, best known for. Anime openings. Don't worry, I'm only talking about the good ones. Let's start with a show that's one of the most likely to hook you with its music, that being Naruto. Disclaimer, I haven't seen Naruto. It's like 7,000 episodes, and most of them are filler. I'm not watching that. But it's got some of the most iconic openings of all time for a reason, like Silhouette by Kana-boon. Kana-boon's pretty popular in Japan. They've done songs for a lot of anime, but this is undoubtedly their biggest hit. And there is a reason for that. It is absolutely deserved. The chorus of this song has one of the best melodies ever. Not just in J-Rock, in any genre of music. It's super hype, it's a fantastic opening, and it's endlessly addicting. Easily one of the best starting places for the genre, if you're just looking for a single song to get you into it. Another great Naruto opening with a stunning melody would be Saishun Kyoso Kyoku by Sambo Master. Sambo Master is a very unique singer, but he is at his absolute best here. This song is mostly carried by his melodic shouting at the top of his lungs. Remember when I said Silhouette is one of the best melodies ever? Yeah, this has the best. I'm so serious. The chorus of this song is one of the best moments in recorded music. I'm not overstating that. I'm not, like, using hyperbole. I genuinely believe that. It is otherworldly. In addition, the album this song is off of, Sambo Master wa Kimi ni Katari Kakeru, is one of my all-time favorites. Check this out. Really check the whole album out. This isn't even the best song on the album it's on. Track 5 is somehow even better than this. It doesn't really have the standout chorus moment, but it's like consistently fantastic. Finally, for Naruto, let's get to what is probably the most influential Naruto opening, that being Haruka Kanata by Asian Kung Fu Generation. This was on their first Japanese EP, Hokai Amplifier, or as it should be called, Haruka Kanata, and then 5 other songs no one really cares about. This song was AKFG's huge breakout success, and pretty much rocketed them to the top of the Japanese rock scene, where they would become an incredibly beloved and influential band, mostly off the back of anime openings. You've got Rewrite, that one's iconic. After Dark is a banger Bleach opening. They've got so many. The main draw on Haruka Kanata and a lot of their other stuff is the pure passion and energy on display. Goto's singing sounds rawer than ever, and despite the in-your-face gritty energy of the song, it still manages to be catchy and fun enough to be a huge commercial success. This song is so iconic they got asked back to do another Naruto opening 15 years later, that being Blood Circulator, which is also great. It's their best song in the past decade. And that song was so good, they got invited back to do a Boruto opening. And that song was not good, just like everything associated with Boruto. We don't talk about that one. Moving beyond Naruto, there's a ton of great openings for other anime. In fact, the opening is probably the only good part of the show Brynhilder in the Darkness. I watched this show. Don't do it. Anyway, the second opening, Virtue and Vice, is done by trancecore band Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, who I endlessly admire for managing to be a commercially and mainstream successful scene-core band in the year 2023. I don't know what kind of black magic they've done to pull that off, but somehow they've done it, and I'm genuinely really impressed. About the actual song here, the first chorus, I guess you could call it, it doesn't really have set choruses, but the first chorus rules. The auto-tune vocals and the melody and the rave synths and the random guy doing death metal screaming in the background somehow all mashes together to produce a super unlikely 15 seconds of ecstasy. This is not one you're maybe gonna want to check out if you're just like looking for, ooh, upbeat, fun J-rock, but if you want absolutely deranged shit, this is the song for you. Another one that fits into that category would be the Akudama Drive opening Steel by synth punk band Spark Sound Show. This is kind of a polarizing one because of the chorus, but I absolutely love it. It was my most played song of all time on Last FM for a while. If you're into punk and chaos, you'll want to check this one out. If you aren't, you'll want to stay very far away. Back to some more normal openings, I guess. Kaikai Kaiten from Jujutsu Kaisen is an absolute classic. This song doesn't really get talked about too much anymore from what I see, but it was absolutely massive when the show was airing. The vocals are a massive high point here and are really the main reason why Eve started to blow up in the J-pop scene the way he did. It does commit the gravest sin in modern Japanese music though, which is a completely random and unnecessary trap breakdown in the second chorus. I've had to talk about like 7 of these on this channel and I've been going for 2 months. Stop doing them, please. The rest of the song here though is so good that I'm able to excuse it a little. It's made up for by the chorus. Sunny Boy may not have been a very good show, please don't kill me, but the opening Shonen Shoujo by legendary punk rock band Gingnang Boys is fantastic. I absolutely adore Gingnang Boys, and it says a lot that this is one of their most restrained songs. If you're like a new J-pop fan, you do not want to dive into Gingnang Boys. They are like the deep end. But you'll probably be fine with this song. This is more of a standard J-rock song than anything they've done before. A lot of the feedback and noise and screaming and insanity that typically defines a Gingnang Boys song is gone here. It's a lot more straightforward. The song rating, though, is still fantastic. The vocals maintain the shouty Gingnang Boys edge, and it's just a great time. I don't think I've ever popped off to an anime as much as when I heard this song in the trailer. I lost my mind. Zammed Lost Memories has 2 great, but also very weird openings, both courtesy of J-Rock / Big Beat / weird post-rock band Boom Boom Satellites. Boom Boom Satellites is just a weird band in general because they randomly went from like a big beat band to an alt-rock band like a decade after they started, and then were even better at it. The first opening, Shut Up and Explode, brings some almost shoegaze quality to the mix, and it takes a little to grow on you, but once you start getting into it, it's fantastic. The second opening, Back on My Feet, is a really weird one because it's a 6-minute long industrial rock song. That's not really the kind of thing you tend to think of when you think of anime openings, but it works somehow. Maybe not as much in like the 1.5-minute version, but the full song is great if you're willing to listen to that. Finally, for anime stuff, I just feel the need to touch on FLCL as a whole here. The FLCL soundtrack is one of the most iconic pieces of J-rock ever put together. I've done a whole video on The Pillows, the band behind it. It's probably my favorite video, and I really recommend you check it out if you haven't. But this soundtrack has so many iconic songs. Last Dinosaur, Hybrid Rainbow, Little Busters, Ride on Shooting Star. These are all essentials for anyone interested in J-rock. Honestly, just go watch FLCL as a whole. You won't be disappointed. I've probably spent too much time talking about anime songs, but they're genuinely a really great jumping off point. They're typically not too weird, and there's not a lot of very unique stuff between the openings, which means there's a lot of similar songs if there's something you really like. If you've got a favorite anime opening, dig more into that band's discography. Like, go find bands that are similar. So now it's time to get talking about one of the other reasons J-rock blows up in the West, that being random YouTube recommendations everyone seems to get at once. I've only got 2 main things to talk about here, but they're both pretty important, and the first one is Massive the Fermenting Dregs, especially their album World Is Yours. It started getting recommended to everyone out of nowhere on YouTube a few years ago, and it pretty much rocketed it in Western popularity. This album and their self-titled are now pretty much essential pieces of the Western J-rock canon, to the point where they've permeated indie music circles and are now just kind of like rate your music mucore type stuff. My favorite song from them is probably either IFA Surfer or She Is Inside, He Is Outside. Both of those are great. The other band I want to talk about here is a personal favorite of mine, that being shoegaze act My Dead Girlfriend. What really helped them was YouTube recommending Hades, the 9 Stages of Change at the Deceased Remains to basically everyone, which is a fantastic album, but my favorite from them is their EP Shaman's Daughter. Iliad and The Secret of Sunflowers from that album are both fantastic and well worth checking out. It's one of my favorite recent shoegaze projects. I really love it. They're a fantastic band that's also simultaneously devastating. The next reason Japanese acts get anywhere in the West is just being so massive in Japan that they eventually start to permeate over a little. I don't have too many examples as this is more of a recent phenomenon, and it also mostly occurs in J-pop and not J-rock, but it's definitely happened. A great example of this would be YOASOBI, but the The issue is I don't really like Yoasobi, so I'm not gonna talk about them too much. Just know they're there if you want them. Next is the other main reason that Japanese acts get anywhere in the West, that being the aforementioned indie music, mucore, rate your music circles. A good recent example of this would be black metal shoegaze band Azuno Jokai, whose album Island from last year got a lot of attention after charting really highly on Rate Your Music. And it's well deserved too. It's a really good record. Kimura is a fantastic song. Now the problem with this kind of indie music type stuff is that it's not the straightforward J-rock that works well for beginners. A lot of it tends to be more experimental, more hardcore, more metal even, but I think it's good music, so I'm gonna keep going anyway. Haru Namuri also falls into this camp. She got pretty popular from her album Haru Toshura. This is probably one of the more accessible ones here, but it's still a pretty weird album. It's going between J-rock, hardcore, noise pop, J-rap even. There's quite a large variety of stuff that happens on this record. Definitely one to check out if you're into some more experimental J-rock. Shinsei Kamada-chan and their debut record Sumane fall into this camp as well. This album is really intense, but it's also really good. Just like Gingnang Boys earlier, this is a band that somehow progressed from insane songs about how much they hate themselves to mainstream anime openings. They got to do an Attack on Titan opening. Listen to this album and be just as confused as I am on how in the hell they got an Attack on Titan opening after this. Last one for this category is going to be the all-girl math rock band Trico. A lot of math rock tends to be kind of in the weird edge, but they're pretty pop oriented, so I think it's fine. They've got one of the largest and most loyal followings of any band I've seen outside of Japan. I know some people who think Trico's the greatest band of all time. They're wrong, but they do exist. The is probably their most famous album, and it's pretty solid, and the song Super Summer from their 2021 album Jodeki is really great. If you like math rock, you'll probably want to check them out. Now it's time for the final category, stuff that I want to talk about. These might not be the most popular or well-known albums, but they're ones I really like, and they're ones I think might be good for a beginner. This is a dictatorship. I'm talking about whatever I want. I will start with one that does have some more popularity in the West, though, that being Lingtosit Sigur. I don't know how to pronounce that name, and I'm not gonna look it up. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the actual band versus their vocalist TK from Lingtosit Sigur, who did the anime mega hit Unravel, but the actual band is fantastic. Side note, calling yourself TK from Lingtosit Sigur is just dumb. He's not called Harry Styles from One Direction. He's just called Harry Styles. Just call yourself TK. Regardless, Lingtosit Sigur's album Just a Moment is somehow currently the #1 album of 2009 on Album of the Year as of me writing and recording this video. It's not gonna hold, but it's pretty cool. That album rules, but I think there's more standout tracks on their debut #4. Yes, they also called their debut #4. That doesn't make any sense either. OFT and Crazy Kanjo Style are both super good, but Sadistic Summer might be the peak of post-hardcore. A band that's much less well-known, but should be, is Balls. Yes, that's the actual band name, and their album Season is fantastic. This is everything J-rock should be. The singer is incredible and way too good to be in a dead indie band. I mean, supposedly they're alive, but they haven't released anything in the past 8 years, so I'm not putting too much faith in them at this point. His melodies are incredible. The songwriting is incredible. The performances are incredible. It's nothing too unique or out there, which makes it good for beginners, but every part of this album is executed to the absolute highest degree. It's so good. My favorite song here changes pretty much every time I listen to it, but Guitar and Blueprint are both really obvious standouts. If you're new to J-rock and some of the noisier, weirder, experimental releases here turn you away, and you're like, I just want something simple, this is the record for you. This might be dabbling a little into the field of J-pop, but Mr. No One Specials by Symbols has been rapidly rising in popularity for a reason. The songwriting on this album is great. It's a really energetic and eclectic record, but that's about what you would expect coming out of the Japanese Shibuya-kei scene. When I make a beginner's guide to J-pop, Shibuya-kei is going to get a whole section in that video, but for now I'm just going to mention Symbols. The opening title track is great, and the ending Reprise is arguably even better. It's a really good album. Finally, I know I've talked about them already, and I will talk about them a lot more on this channel, trust me, but Asian Kung Fu Generation is probably the J-rock band, and my default recommendation is always going to be their album Fan Club. It's, in my opinion, the best Japanese album of all time. Heck, it's the number 2 album of all time for me. There's so many songs to love here. Ongo no Waltz and World Apart are fantastically hyped. Blue Train is more mellow and it's focused on a standout performance from the drummer Ijichi. Tightrope is an incredible closer that has a cathartic emotional climax, and all the songs that fill in the gaps like Blackout and Butterfly are just as incredible. If you want a full album J-Rock recommendation, just go check out Fan Club and have a great time. So there you go. I still have a lot of stuff I didn't talk about here, so I could always make another video on this if there's interest, but for now, this is probably good. I think I covered a lot of the anime hits, the deeper cuts, and both the mainstream and more experimental stuff. I'm also probably going to do a similar video to this for J-pop at some point. Not sure when, because I'm lazy, but it'll probably happen. Like, comment, sub. I'd really appreciate it. See ya.